Hello and welcome to Dolphin Financial Radio. I'm Dan Wendell, owner of Dolphin Financial Group. Today, we're going to have a interesting topic that I just came across. I was reading an article about a woman who retired to Mexico. She left her home in California and has $1,000 of income to her name at age 64, and now she's living the dream in Mexico. And so I want to talk about that. Help me talk about it. I'm going to bring in my favorite co-host, Tony. Tony Shore. Let's see. There he is.
Yeah, favorite. I'm your only co-host, Dan. So
Today you are.
Yep.
Careful what you wish for. You may. No, I need you to continue to suffer with me on this. But I did, as you notice, my background, nice little serene dolphin jumping.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Hopefully my video footage doesn't get crackly again, but I'm working on that. But so anyway, I was planning to talk about something different today.
Okay.
It really was. And
what are we talking about?
So I read an article on CNBC. Let me just get the title here so I can tell if anyone wants to read it, they can. But we're going to talk about it today, Tony. It's called, the headline is, "This 64-year-old left the U.S. for Mexico. Now she's retired by the beach, living on just $1,000 per month."
Wow.
So today,
$1,000 a month. That's amazing.
Well, I know. And so I say we talk about it. And we've done shows on retiring in Florida. We've done shows on which states are better for retirement. In fact, a couple of years, maybe 3 years ago, I had, remember Mike Mansfield, we talked back and forth. He's a retirement planner in California, and we went toe-to-toe on which state is better for retirement. He still claims California is, although I did see he did a recent podcast on how California is in shambles. But so this lady may have felt the same, and she moved to Mexico. So I wanted to talk about it because I thought it was fascinating, interesting. I remember growing up, when my dad was still working, I remember he told me one of his fellow teachers is going to retire in Costa Rica.
That's a popular place. I've heard that one before.
But that was probably popular in the 90s as a retirement destination.
It still makes the list that I've seen, but not as high.
You have lists?
I have lists. I went to smartasset.com and Forbes when you mentioned that lady story, and I looked up some lists, and Costa Rica was on both of them. Not as one of the cheapest, but one of the best places, although it is less expensive than the U.S., which pretty much all these countries are. So,
well, I still plan on doing a show with one of my good friends who lived in Switzerland for a while.
Oh, wow.
I think that may be one of the most expensive states to live in.
Oh, yeah, countries. Yeah. Oh, Switzerland.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Got to be one of the most expensive. A lot of the European countries, I would assume, are very expensive. Like England and London is expensive, and Switzerland's got to be outrageous.
Well, and when people ask me, what do I need to retire? The first question I ask is, well, how much are you spending? So if they say, well, I'm going to go retire in Switzerland, that's, then all of a sudden, well, $1 million is not going to cut it.
Yeah.
So when I read this, I saw she was retiring to Mexico. And what was interesting is there was some non-financial reasons for it. And there were some non-financial reasons that were holding her back, but it is a financial show. It's a financial article. So I want to talk about it, get your take on it too. Okay. There's a bunch of factors when you're going into where you're going to retire. It doesn't matter where you're going to retire. You still have to factor in income. How much you need, like I said, is a big deal. So in this woman's case, she's retiring on $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month, and majority of that is from Social Security, apparently. So let's just talk about that for a minute. $1,000 a month is not going to cut it in the United States, in most places.
Not even close.
Certainly not where she was in California. But in Mexico, where she moved to, let me see where she moved to. Mazatlan, Mexico, which apparently is just south of the Mexican border there on the Pacific coast.
Hmm.
So I guess she was looking at different places to go, and she had a salary of 35,000. And she said even with side hustles, California became too expensive. And her main reason for going, which is why I want to talk about it, but I found it very fascinating, was she was looking for happiness. She was chasing happiness, right? And she felt that money difficulties was the big issue in California. She liked where she was. She had a big community of friends. She has three adult children, and they're all financially stable, because that's another issue. If you have kids that are leeching off of you, it could really make retirement miserable. But she felt that she wasn't happy for another reason. She was restless and dissatisfied. And here's what she wrote. She wrote, "I constantly felt like I wasn't enough, and I didn't have enough. I saw friends buying $1 million homes," which in California is, starter home. I saw friends buying $1 million homes, expensive cars, and the newest phones. I felt like a game that couldn't be won, and I wasn't interested in playing anymore. So then she vacationed in that part of Mexico, and she decided she was going to move there. And she did.
Wow.
And she said in her first year, and this was in 2006, in her first year, she lived off of 9,500. That was 5,000 in savings and 4,500 from some online job she had. So $10,000, that's less than $1,000 a month.
That's crazy that your total cost of living could be that low.
Right. So I'm reading this like, this is nonsense. This is a lie. I'm the New Yorker in me comes out and says, come on now, this is BS. Right. And so I read a little more, and she's like, and all of a sudden I'm 62, and she stopped working and put on added Social Security, and her Social Security was under 1,000 a month, which is about 20,000 pesos, Tony. If my math is correct.
I had no idea.
I actually sold a book in Mexico, my new book, and I got pesos for it. I had to do some math. I got excited for a minute. I'm like, wow. But then I said, oh yeah, that's, so she is, so how does this happen? Right. So, because the first factor I think is, besides income. All right. So let's just say you want to retire in Mexico, and you have a pension, you have Social Security, you have dividends and stock portfolio, you have traditional retirement income. And you think, oh, it's not enough in the US, but if you go to Mexico, let's just imagine for a moment you have the income you need. Okay. Your income is set through Social Security. And yes, sure, you can get Social Security and not live in the United States. You still get it in your bank account. They'll send it to a foreign bank account. You're fine. So, let's assume you have the income. How is she pulling this off? First thing I think of is, where are you living? Right? Are you buying a house? And how much is that? So in her case, 14 years in living in Mexico, her expenses have been 1,000 a month, which is crazy. But she said, I never paid more than 400 per month for a rental.
Oh, wow.
That's a house. So that's a 1,600 square foot condo. Brand new.
Not bad.
She was paying $200 for one bedroom.
$200?
$200 for a one bedroom
wow
place in that part of Mexico. So again, red flags go off on me. What are you getting for 200?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you get the Best Western off of in between Twin Cities for 200? Maybe.
Not a month.
Not a month, right? 200 a week.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? So I okay, but let's talk about the expenses. So housing is an issue. One of the things that also comes up in my mind with housing is in Mexico is safety.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
know that's a big concern on the touristy areas, a lot of muggings and so on. I don't have any evidence of, it's riskier to live. Now, you mentioned that you said you saw some lists. Were those about cost? You said it wasn't about cost.
No, it was about cost and safety. They factored in both.
Okay.
So they ranked them both, and Mexico was on there. And as far as safety, it was lower than some. I think Costa Rica, the safety was up. Panama actually was one of the top places because English is spoken pretty much by
Well,
everyone
right. We
there.
kind of went in there and built the canal and took over from there, right? So,
Yeah,
there's a lot of expats living there.
there are.
Um,
Yeah,
so maybe that's the relative safety of groups of expats,
yeah,
perhaps. I
yep.
think if I was going to go live abroad as a retiree, I'd want to go where there are other retirees that are from the US.
Oh, for sure. And these, a lot of the lists you can find about this and information. That's the big thing. I would want to go where people spoke English because I don't know a second language, right? So that's huge for me and for my wife. Actually, my wife speaks fluent Spanish, so I guess we could get by in some of these countries. But Portugal was number one on a lot of the lists too. I've never been to Portugal, but
Really?
I don't know if I could show you where it was on a map. I mean, geography is not my thing, Dan. What am I?
It's right next to Spain. You're
Sure,
like, okay, that
sure.
doesn't help me.
No,
Well,
I know where Spain is. I just forgot where Portugal was for a moment.
let's
I knew it
back
was
up a
somewhere.
bit. I didn't know your wife was fluent in Spanish.
Yeah, yeah, she speaks Spanish very well. In fact, um, she used to help coordinate adoptions from Guatemala and Spanish-speaking countries. Like she would, because she would help be a translator between the attorneys in Guatemala, the adoption attorneys, and the people here doing the adoption and the families. So yeah, she does. I mean, she took it in high school and college, and then because of that job, she really got immersed in it. I mean, she would go down to Guatemala like 8 times a year, but then she got out because the international adoption's super corrupt, and she didn't want to be a part of it after a while because it's just not good. But which is too
Well, that
bad.
would be, yeah, that is sad, but that would be an issue. Corruption would be an issue that I'd be nervous about.
Yep.
You know?
Like Guatemala, I would live. We've talked Antigua. There's a place called Antigua in Guatemala. It's a little town. And if you first go there, that's where you want to go. You don't want to just hang out in Guatemala City because it's kind of just a big, ugly, almost third world city. But Antigua is beautiful, and a lot of expats move there. But there is corruption. Like to get stuff done, like with the government, you go in, and if you need to get a license or something, you better have cash in your pocket to slip the person who's helping you. Or they say no, this will take 3 months. So something you need like right away, right? Like a
Right.
marriage certificate, and then you go, oh, we really need it today, and then you hand them 100 cool American hundo, and they're like, I'll process this now. Stamp. Here you go. Done.
So I could just see you out there in Costa Rica or Guatemala with your wife, and you'd be like, honey, como se dice? How do you say pizza buffet? Or how do you say donut? And you'd be like, I'm getting this. I'm getting this.
Yeah. But in a lot of these places, like you said, there's a lot of expat groups that are tight knit. So you can become part of it and you find out where they hang out. I know in Antigua, there's this little bar and grill restaurant kind of place, bar basically called El Mono Loco, which is the crazy monkey. And I know that they have Wi-Fi, and you see American looking people on their laptops in this little place, and it's a cool little hang. And you see that and you picture yourself, yeah, I could live here. But then there's other things. I mean, for me, there's things like, on top of my list is cleanliness, safety, and what kind of bugs and things. How many things are there that could kill me? Right?
Bugs.
Yeah. Of course,
Bugs.
you live
Well,
in
let me see if
Florida.
she
That's
yeah,
why
I live in
that's one
Florida.
of the main things keeping me from Florida.
Bugs.
And
Well,
alligators, of course.
let me
The
see if
gator.
that's bugs was on her list in this article. It wasn't, but g I get you. There's some things that go beyond finances, but bugs, weren't on there. Let's look at her. So, back to the expenses here.
Yeah.
So, bills. Electricity, she said, was $10 a month, 35 a month and during the summer for air conditioning.
Wow.
Um, Wi-Fi and cell phone was 18 per month. Man, get me on that plan.
$18?
Yeah,
$18?
per
Holy
month.
cow. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm maybe we're doing something wrong, I guess. Food and
Yeah.
entertainment. So you mentioned the bar, the Crazy Monkey.
Yeah.
So she spends between 100 and 150 per month on gas.
Hmm.
She can go to a movie for under 5. Breakfast, $6, including tip. Fancy dinner would be about 18, and then grocery bills are 250 to 300 per month. So again, you don't know what that's all about because you don't know how she's eating, what kind of food, and that.
Right.
But
Right.
still, 250 to 300 a month sounds great. I would do that in a
It's a
heartbeat. I spend that a
yeah.
week with my family.
Oh,
Um,
exactly. Me too.
so expenses are a big factor. So that's the main reason why people go abroad and say, "Well, I'm going to go live in Mexico because it is cheaper." Housing, obviously, food and entertainment's cheaper. So right away, you're saying, "All right, I could do this." But my big factor is similar to yours. How many things can kill me? It's healthcare.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a
Healthcare is the big
huge
one.
one.
Yep. And they say that healthcare in Panama is really, really good. They have really good doctors, and it's really cheap, like $50 or less to go in. That's without insurance and get a visit and get what you need, things like that. Certain countries have great medical care. I think Costa Rica and Panama have really good medical care. There's a lot of our doctors here are go to medical school in these countries because of the cost. So
Well, I do know that medical tourism is a real thing, and people leave the US to go to Mexico, but
that
it's
would be a
mainly
whole other
for
show. I think that's fascinating.
yeah, but that's gonna be not for, "Hey, I got cancer, let me go down there." It's more like, "I want to get my teeth fixed," or
Yeah.
"I want cosmetic surgery," or something like that, where it's not life or death. So maybe it is, but I don't see that. I see a lot of people from other countries coming to the US during that life or death type medical. So that would
Yep.
be my main concern. So looking at what she says she uses an international health insurance company for 1,500 per year. I don't know how you do that. A deductible of 1,000. But she can go to any pharmacy, could consult with a doctor for a simple health issue for $3. A specialist like ear, nose, throat would be $35. That's,
Jeepers.
and dental, obviously, she paid 150 for a crown, which, wow, that would be great. Dental's a big issue for retirees, huge
Yeah.
issue for retirees. There's another show right there. But she's talking about this, but here's where it comes down. And right now with COVID, I wanted to get into that because there's a little spot here. She talks about it. And this also leads to the other huge factor, and this is probably the biggest factor for most people and where they live is where's your family? You
Yeah.
know,
Want to be close to the grandkids. That's
you
that's
want to
a
be
big
close to the
thing for a
grandkids.
lot of people. Yeah.
And that was a big issue for this woman in this article. And by the way, the article is on CNBC. It's called "The 64-Year-Old Left." This 64-year-old left US for Mexico, and now she's retired by the beach, living on 1,000 per month. Sounds kind of nice, but so family, being near family was a big factor for her. And I want to read this little piece here because it's important. She said, "Despite the heartstring pull of grandkids and the deep comfort of being around my children, I have no regrets about leaving the US. When the pandemic started, they wanted me to be closer in the country where I'm a citizen and where medical care is seen more reliable and where doctors speak the same language." Now, this reminds me of that scene from Godfather. You remember maybe it was Godfather, the original or the second one, I don't remember, where he's in Cuba um, Hyman Roth or whoever is in Cuba, and he's like, "I want this doctor." He's from Florida. He's like, "I want the doctors to speak English. Give me an English speaking doctor." I don't. And he's dying of a heart attack or something, and they
Sure.
tell him to take medicine, and he's like, "Somebody tell me what's going on here." So I'd be the same way. You feel if you, it's hard enough communicating with doctors under stress of a medical condition. If you can't
Yeah.
speak the language, unless you got your wife there translating, you're going to be panicked. So anyway, she writes, I've been in Oregon since April, feeling like a fish out of water as I waited to get vaccinated so I can go back home to Mexico.
Oh, interesting.
So that's an interesting scenario is, well, how are you going to get vaccine in Mexico? It's hard enough to get it here in the US. So she made that decision. So, everything's great and everything's good, but push comes to shove, she's back here in the United States for a COVID situation. Her kids probably forced her that, and she's saying, I want to go back home to Mexico, but yet she's still here. So again, it goes to the whole healthcare situation, which is my big number one.
Well, that's got to be the huge thing. I mean, healthcare is big, and that's, of course, a lot. You start with income, and that's where you started, which I think makes perfect sense. And then healthcare and family. I think those are the three biggest right there. And those are the things people are going to look at, obviously. And the income part of it, though, is a given because we know these places are cheaper. I mean, there's dozens of articles and lists about how great and cheap it is to retire in Panama or Costa Rica or Mexico or Portugal, and how little you can live on. We've got that part. So the income part, I think most people's Social Security could carry them through in some of these cheaper places. But then you have to look at all the other factors. And I think healthcare is a big one, like you said, and family. I mean, I think it's hard for people, for some people, it'd be very easy to move away from family. It depends on your family, right? So
Right.
some people, it might be a bonus in their minds, but, hopefully you have a tight-knit family, and hopefully it is a hard decision, but, boy, it's always tempting. When you read about these things, it's fun to kind of fantasize about, what would it be like to live in this, warmer tropical environment? Of course, Sarasota, we're already there, right? But if you grew up in Minnesota and you're living in Minnesota and it's January and it's 30 below zero, you're like, retirement in a tropical climate. Every day is like spring here.
Omaha, here I come.
Oh,
halfway there.
Let's head south.
But to wrap it up, Tony, you're bringing a good point, and it is easier for single people, perhaps, that don't have that family. But that was a big thing for her, and healthcare is a big thing. But there's another thing here that I think overarching is the biggie, and that is income. If all you have is Social Security and you're scraping by with $1,500 a month income in the United States, that's difficult. And there's this social pressure of keeping up with the Joneses and doing what the other retirees doing.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think what this woman's message is you could be poor in the US, or you could take that same income and be average somewhere else in Mexico, in a small town in Mexico, and live a happy life where the people aren't overspending, overindulging in life expenses, huge houses, fancy cars, and things like that. And that it brings the standard of living down, but not in a negative way. Not like you're living,
in poverty,
with flies landing on your head and, eating bowls of rice. It's not like that. It's more of, we're taking the entire societal level down a notch, so that everyone is in a better spot emotionally and financially. But Americans have come to request and require a huge amount of stuff and a high level of service about certain things, which is why I'm saying, healthcare is up there. We've gotten to the point where we expect so much from healthcare, but it's not free. So it's a balance, but I think it's a very interesting topic. I'm going to explore this further and maybe bring someone on that's actually done it and get their true take on it.
Yeah, that would be great if we could find somebody who's moved to one of these countries and is living there. I mean, some people move even before retirement. With the internet and the pandemic, a lot of people said, hey, why not? Let's move. Let's go live in Costa Rica for a year, or Panama for a year, or Mexico for a year. So there are people doing it even outside of retirement. I thought I'd throw that in. But yeah, we're out of time. A great show, though. This is a fascinating topic, and I love talking about it. And it gives another option for people to think about. If they're struggling financially here to make it, maybe they could retire somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And they could still keep their money invested in the US and growth and get the income. You can make it work. Tony, there's one last thought I want to leave you with as we head to the weekend. You right now don't have to be in Minnesota. You could theoretically
I
be
know.
in Guatemala recording
Or
this.
beautiful Sarasota. Yeah.
There
I
it is.
could be in Antigua. Yeah. It would be fun to be in Antigua. Yeah. I
Think
do
about
worry about the quality of the internet in some of these places. I'd have to check it out. Go down, visit, check it out first. But yeah.
Well, look at my feed. I've been going in and out on this feed alone. So quality is all. You could be in the
It's
US in
relative.
Clearwater, Florida, well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Tune in next time. Be sure to subscribe, and we're going to start going live pretty soon. So get ready for that. You can ask questions and join the conversation.
Join
Tony,
the fun.
thanks again, and you have a great day.
You too, Dan. Awesome.